And you are live.
All right, well, welcome everybody. And as I said before, Happy New Year. We are here for the virtual meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Elections. And I'd like to call it to order and take roll call.
Cliff Myers, member, present.
Brianna Cuffey, member, present.
I'm Regina Watkins, Aldridge City Clerk, present.
And
Oh, Sue, you're muted.
that's all right. And Ashley, I know, is here, so she's.
I am here.
All
I'm
right,
here.
great. All right. Well, first order of business is approval of the minutes from December 17th. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at them. Does anybody need additional time or have any comments?
I do.
Okay.
Susan did a great job.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
She did an excellent job. And I just want to tell you, she's doing a great job and she's taking a lot of work off my shoulder. And Susan, thank you from the bottom of my soul. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
She is doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I had one little nitpicky thing and now I can't find my copy of it, but it was just something, it was like a word that was missing, a little, oh, I wish I had it with me. I don't know, Brianna or Cliff, do you have anything?
I did not have any comments.
I didn't either.
All right, well, mine was like an at needed to be included, so I'm not going to worry about it. Something really.
All right.
So.
Well, I move to adopt the minutes of the December 17, 2020 meeting.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Okay, moving on to discussion. Election update, if Regina?
I just want to ask you guys a question before we get too deep into the election season. Do you still have your name tags?
I do.
I do.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay. All right. So election update. Huh? And Ashley, you want to comment on the status of the MOU or we're just in holding?
So we're on holding, still on hold, but Joe Torre promised that he would get something to us next week, at least comments or something via email. He hasn't committed to a meeting as of yet.
Okay. All right. And we know that the mayor has sent in a request to the county executive, so we just have to wait.
Yes.
So, all right. Anything on the election office update, Susan or Regina?
We have not been told anything different since our last meeting. They placed the wall in. It has a window in. We're not sure what the status is of anything else or who's sitting back there. We have not had a staff meeting to be provided with the details, unless Ashley knows.
Okay. All right. And Susan, I know you're in the conference room and seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's working. So.
Okay, great.
I don't have any updates other than they're still screwing around with the doors and the locks, and there is actually no physical window. It's just a hole in the wall at the moment.
Okay. Susan, are you getting many phone calls at all about the election or inquiries about candidacy?
I have actually one person coming in tomorrow to drop off her certificate of candidacy.
Oh, sweet.
And I had somebody else contact me way back before the end of the year asking when the deadline was for filing certificates of candidacy. That's about it so far.
Okay, great.
But hopefully we'll have at least one candidate to approve in February, if not more.
Well, I think things will start ramping up, especially as budget review gets going and the spring starts. So, all right. Anything else to comment about elections in terms of the operations?
No.
Not really.
Okay. Legislation update. I want to thank Ashley for working on this independent expenditures. piece, do you want to, she and I had a chance to review some things today because I was wrestling with some of the verbiage.
So I provided some updates, which you probably haven't had time to look. There's one more definition that needs to go in there. Qualifying, I forget what it's called. Qualifying. Why am I blanking on it? But it relates to what is considered a public communication, and it relates to social media, but not far enough along to, I think, where you guys wanted to social media. So I proposed some alternatives. The state doesn't really get into regulating independent expenditures related to social media. They do have a separate law that I sent to you guys that deals with candidates collaborating on social media and having to report that. But I have to look at that more closely. So there's that, other than the one new definition that needs to go in. And then the other piece I sent you is for the first part of the legislation, which actually isn't independent expenditures. It's just normal reporting. But I sent you one line that the state has in their code about how losing candidates can do a final report and close out and stop any additional reporting obligations they would otherwise have to do, which I think might be helpful for some of the issues you guys have seen. And it would hopefully just be adding in one sentence or so to that section. So I emailed you guys all that. I think we're getting close. I'll take another closer look at it next week. And if you have any comments, feel free to email them to me. And then, so I think that's it. So we'll hopefully get that up soon. Once we add in the one definition and we just sort out the social media piece. So I think that's about it. Unless you guys have, there was one other thing that we discussed. It was the mass texting. So at the state level, mass texting has hit 5,000 texts going out before it becomes, sort of a reporting incident. And we discussed whether that's too high
For the city.
Yes.
Yes.
Just because, as Elaine pointed out, might be some words that don't even have 5,000 people in them. So I'm open to suggestions on that. She also said you were going to look into it, but that was the other number.
Yeah, I was wondering about that as well. I mean, in other categories, like for mail, it says over a 30-day period to hit the threshold if you had like 500. But yeah, the texting was in one instance 5,000. So I don't know what the right number is. Maybe it's 1,000 is a better number.
What the different breakouts, I didn't have the information easily accessible, what breakouts are as far as the different, but it could easily be that maybe 2,000 if you think of whether the Democrat or the Republican has that many constituents in their ward. So I'll look at the breakout. Maybe that'll help us decide on the numbers for that. I did want to get feedback as to what you all thought about Ashley's suggestion of using this opportunity to have losing candidates count their final campaign report as a closing report and basically ask them to cash out. This is pretty consistent with what the state does. What we do is if somebody loses and they want to just keep going in terms of maintaining their campaign, they can. I'm not hearing you, Cliff.
There's the final report due during the cycle is the what is it? The report just before the general election, right?
Right, but there's another report.
December the 1st.
Right, there's the other report.
Number one, right. And of course, you could be a losing candidate in the primary and be gone at that point in time.
Right.
And then, of course, you've got the losing candidate after the general. and, their final report, would not be a closing report because, maybe they've got, $700 sitting on that report. And they need to decide, what to do with it to be able to close out their campaign.
Well, that's the point. They need
yeah.
to decide what to do with it
Right.
because.
Right. But yeah, you hit the ethics thing, which we came across, as far as, that particular report. And so I don't know, maybe it's, excuse me, I don't know, do we need to send a note to anybody who's lost in a primary, anybody who is did not succeed in the general, and specifically ask them, do you wish to close your campaign account? December 1. Regina, I'm sorry.
When people are campaigning, and even if they lose during the primary, that's still in between the period of 2 campaign fund reports, right after one and right before another one. So maybe the closing should just be after the general. If you have a campaign after the general and you're a losing candidate, period.
Right. Well,
Right.
because somebody could still be a write-in candidate. I mean, the thought was just to have everybody close out,
Right.
either you lost in the primary or lost in the general. We are now going to stipulate you close out your campaign.
Unless, some may decide, no, I'm going to give this a shot in 4 more years. I'm not going to close it out, but they need to be cognizant of that, what they're saying with that decision.
Right. But I think, Cliff, what I'm proposing is that we do away with that option. State election law does not provide for that. State election law, when you finish, you're a losing candidate, your campaign is done. You're no longer a candidate. You close your account and you settle. Part of the reason I'm bringing it up is not just in terms of compliance with state code, state election law, but some of our greatest time-consuming efforts in terms of following campaign fund reports has been getting losing candidates to file their reports.
But I don't know, is that because the losing candidate truly wants to drop, So if they've got $700 in their campaign account, so we're essentially telling them at that point in time, you need to, disperse those excess funds now. And there's a decision tree on those. I mean, obviously one is to go to the central committee, one is to come to the city. Can they dispense of those excess funds by returning them pro rata to their donors?
No.
So, I mean, so we're essentially telling anybody, you lost, you didn't spend all your money, you still have $700, but you must now give that to the Democratic or Republican Central Committee or hand it over to the city. Is that what we're saying?
We could put in a different option, which again would be what the state law does, is you can donate it to a nonprofit. I mean, I'm putting it out there in terms of discussion, not a final decision tonight, but I think again, trying to be consistent with state election law and also to try to avoid some of the challenges that we've had. Right now, it would only affect one candidate or one person. So perhaps what we can do is
strongly recommend spend all your money. So if you lost, you went out with a bang.
Well, I mean, they can donate it to, so I mean, we could, if it would be helpful, is I can see if Ashley can pull out the exact election law, and we can look at that and kind of evaluate it and kind of see. I mean, I guess you could, we could go and say we strongly encourage. We could maybe give them additional time, say 60 days after the last report, they must, make a decision. They could always go ahead and reapply for candidacy. I mean,
can you reapply for candidacy the January 1 of the year after the election?
Regina?
We haven't even set up an election office yet. It's 1 year before.
Right. I don't know. Regina, can you do that?
The answer is no.
Okay.
I think because you can't turn in your certificate of candidacy until 1 year to the date of the deadline of the certificate of candidacy. Right. So I would have to say no. And another question, we put a definition of candidate in our new rules, I think.
Mhm.
And wouldn't we have to look at that before we could write any language to this part,
Okay,
if that makes any sense?
I mean, in the candidate handbook.
Yeah,
So I have that.
because at certain point, remember people were saying that they were no longer a candidate after the election was over, so they shouldn't have to turn in a certificate of candidacy because they're no longer a candidate. So how would that work if we requested that they close their campaigns after the general?
That means that they're not candidates and then they're done. They don't-
Yeah.
And you're
so
not a candidate even with it open, because you have to refile your certificate of candidacy for the next cycle.
So that would be more of a reason to close it, right? You're not a candidate anymore.
Right. I mean, this is a discussion we've had after
Yeah.
the 2017, and we actually talked with Jared about it. So according to the handbook, which comes from code, candidate means any person who files a certificate of candidacy for any public or party office. So this just goes back again to the question we've always had is, if that candidate, I mean, if that certificate of candidacy was for one election year and it's no longer valid, then they're no longer a candidate. So, well, let's see if we can get some more information and think about it. It's really the first time we've really talked about it.
Yeah.
in depth.
And I think certainly, we would owe it to any of the candidates in advance, clearly, certainly by the summertime, but hopefully, we resolve it before then, that if we're going to indicate that you need to, if you've not succeeded in your attempt and come December, you need to close out if you are not successful, that any remaining funds have to go, one of two places today. And, I think we'd have to do a code change to add a third place, right?
Well, this is, I mean, you
Yeah.
could do it as part of this. I mean,
Right.
Ashley's thought was it all falls in there. So
Right,
let's
right,
take the next month to
Okay.
look at it and see if we can't finalize this
Yep.
legislation by the next meeting so that we can start it through the process
Hmm.
and use that time to get some more information and kind of look at both sides of the issue. Another type of thing that came up in the review of this was amounts which Ashley mentioned, and also the social media. The thought too was, it doesn't seem like we really have to, it doesn't really call for that many more reports. It really calls for a report or a submission of a registration form within 48 hours after the expenditure is done, which means we would have to come up with a registration form and filing. So again, that would just be something that we need to think about. And then the other thing would be there is a late filing fee that's associated with, and again, we would need to decide what would be a late filing fee for that report. So there's a few things. I'll see if I can't put a summary together and send that out and see if that's helpful.
Eileen,
Uh-huh.
all of the things you were just discussing, since you are going to be appointed to the Charter Revision Commission, are you going to take those recommendations to them also?
Probably not, because it doesn't really involve the charter. It's something within our purview.
But they'll affect changes to the code and charter.
Right. Well, these won't. They won't affect the code. I mean, they won't affect the charter.
Oh, the charter and the code's kind of one book.
I know. I think at this point, we can move forward, particularly since Alderman Savage had brought up the one, at least the one concept. I think, if Brianna and Cliff agree, we can move forward with it.
Okay.
That brings us to the next section, which is on the Charter Review Commission. And, I was trying to find some information on what's been discussed and reviewed in the past, and there really isn't much information.
I have it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
So anyway, so I know that what we have talked about for the charter, well, actually, before I go there, does anybody have any other comments or thoughts on the independent expenditures legislation?
Actually, it'll come up in terms of some of the other forms. Code right now references, and this has got, you're not a candidate if you don't intend to receive in excess of $100. And elsewhere we have references to 300.
Right, that's been changed, I think. I think
Okay.
she put on there that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe on the red line that's been deleted.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Brianna, any comments, thoughts?
I don't think so. I think the only ones I had, I feel like I may have responded in an email, but no.
Yeah, you mentioned something about the social media and the need
Yeah.
for that and being somewhat specific. I mean, right now, what the state appears to do is they don't count electronic communications as public communications.
They only count very limited ones.
Right.
It has to be like a qualified paid digital communication. That's the phrase,
Right.
which has a very narrow definition. So
you were gonna look at that though, right, Ashley?
I did, and I pulled it up, but I'll try and do some changes on it. I didn't have a good chance to read through everything that I pulled and sent to you guys, so I'll try and read that this week or next week. Today's already Thursday night. Keep forgetting.
Okay. All right. So we're moving forward with it. There's no super rush about it, but it would be nice to be able to get it taken care of sooner rather than later. And if we need to postpone it, we will. So, okay, recommendations to the Charter Revision Commission. I found myself on the list. So I know it's moving through the city council. So I am listed as a potential member on the commission. So I can bring some of this forward. What I'm looking at so far that we've been discussing are partisan versus nonpartisan elections and changing the rotation of the elections to coincide either with the national elections or the state elections. And then the third piece we've talked about is moving the primary date. Any others that you all can recall that might fall into this, or any new ones?
And I apologize, I can't recall if this was code or charter. But
Yeah.
well, no. My
Oh, I see.
question, I can't is the requirement in terms of polling locations. Is that code or charter that defines in order to move to, flexibility to have fewer polling locations than there are precincts?
Well, I don't think we have to have one for each precinct. We have to have one for
Right.
each ward.
And so that would be then, even so, I think worthy of contemplation.
Okay. I'm writing it down. Any others? I mean, as I get more information about the group and how it's going to work, I'll certainly share it with you all. Regina, do you have anything else to potentially add?
No, I'm not right now, no.
Who is the staff that works with that commission?
I have no idea. That's what I was going to ask you.
Oh,
I have no idea as of right now,
okay.
but I'll find out for you.
Okay, that'd be great. All right, any other pieces in terms of legislation? Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, campaign fund report review. Any updates on audited reports?
Well, the two that we had from last time are resolved. Thank you, Susan, for continuing to move those through. So both Alderwoman Pindell Charles and Alderman Savage both amended and corrected their report, so they are squared away.
Okay.
And I think we were still waiting. I don't know where the agreement stands as regards Alderman Gay.
Well, I sent. Go ahead.
Oh, and Gina, did Alderman Arnett send
right.
you what you asked for? You got the statement?
Listen, as for Alderman Arnett, I think Eileen requested that when he submits his next report, that the $20 is reflected in the report. And I actually had a phone conversation with the alderman, and he said that he has a new treasurer. He's going to send in his updated treasurer form, and he's going to make sure the $20 shows in his report, and he will send a letter with his next report. And I gave him the date of the next report in an email, and I think I sent it to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we're
Great.
good. I think,
Okay.
you know, he's aware of it. And
Yeah.
I think we all had decided we'd let him fix it on the next rotation rather than with this one.
Right.
In regards to Alderman Gay, I did send him an email last week, reminding that when we spoke in December, that he said that he would submit a report and would be submitting his $250 late fee by the end of the year. So I have sent him that email. I have not heard back. To my knowledge, I don't think Regina has heard back from him. And so we'll just keep moving forward. I did discuss it with Ashley today. And I mean, our hands are somewhat tied other than sending him another letter. Certainly, if he does apply for candidacy, we won't be able to take his certificate.
That's
And
correct.
I believe,
Nope.
Regina, you have told him that, correct?
That is correct.
So we're kind of at a stalemate, I think, at this point. I mean, we've talked in the past with other candidates as far as putting forth misdemeanor. I think at this point it might be unrealistic given the backup of the courts and also the difficulty with moving forward with that anyway. So let's just kind of hope that he responds. Any other ideas or thoughts?
You can invite him to your meeting.
Well, I mean, he's always
tried that a
invited to our
couple
meeting.
times.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
always invited.
We could just tell him that you guys, you could attend the meeting. The board would like to talk to you.
Well, I mean, that's an option if we request his presence at our February meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff, Brianna, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Cliff?
Yeah, I think it's a request. It's not an ask at this point. I mean, I'm
Okay, I think
fatigued. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we will request it at the February meeting.
And the reason I asked that I brought that up is because the closer we get to the election, all these little pieces, if we get those wrapped up, we won't have to worry about them going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a lot of little pieces that Susan and I are pulling together. So
Right.
trying
No,
to
that sounds good. All right. Sounds like an option. So we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, review election forms. I'm going to hand this over to you, Susan, and you can go through it with us.
Okay, where do I start here? Well, I guess I should start with the first one on the agenda, which is the campaign fund report. And I left my form upstairs, but did you get a chance to even look at it? I think it was a lot of little tweakings here and there, but I think highlights are, I added space both on the receipts page and the disbursements page for people to indicate that it's an EFT type transaction, which includes credit card, debit card, any kind of, Square, whatever, however you receive that. So that was something that was added. I added descriptions for the receipts, I believe, which was not there before. I think if it was an other, there was no place to indicate like how to describe what an other was. So now there is on the receipts page a place for that. And let's see. And also I added a checkbox for the
Final report.
If it, yes, on the front page, yes, there's a place on the summary page where they can say this is a final report and to indicate where they want their money, they're going to send their money to.
Okay.
And then also on the Schedule 1, there's a place where they can check a box if the receipt is from a PAC.
Right.
Because that was one of the things we said, how can we identify PACs? So I don't know if this is a way to do that, but it's a way for the candidate to identify them for us and make it kind of stand out for us. I should have a better idea.
Okay.
Then let's see. I'm kind of going off my memory here. I should go get the form.
You want to go get it? I mean, go
Yeah,
get
let me
it.
go get it. I'll be right back.
Sure.
While Susan's getting it, I had a kind of a thought that, do we add, heaven forbid, another form? But this would, instead of the first page in the report is not the summary of receipts and disbursements. The first page of the report is a page that says, essentially a checklist for submittal of my campaign finance report. Only would need to be signed by the treasurer. I'm not going to, get the candidate to sign it as well, or the committee. But on that page that they must submit with every report, might be, something which has, I had a list of all of our fund packed items. But, I attest that I have an aggregate amount listed for every contributor. I have a code provided for every contribution. I have a code provided for every distribution. I have full names and address on any individual who is, there are like 6 or 7 things that we see all the time. Is trying to think where do we, absent trying to work those into the pages themselves to force, I don't see anything here, which gets a little more, you can do that, but with some coding. But maybe it's, just, you can lead them to water. You can't quite make them drink. But, something that the treasurer signs is the first page. It says, these things are in the report that I'm about to submit to you, to try to see if we can not get these same types of common mistakes.
Well, I have 2 thoughts. One is it's another piece of paper that they don't submit. So if they don't submit it, do we go after them to submit it?
No, I wouldn't chase them for that one. But I'd say this is the first page. And if they don't,
Well,
I wouldn't chase them for it. But
can
it's,
we put it in, instead of adding it to this, can we put it in the candidate handbook?
I think you put it in the handbook and I'll never see it. They'll look at the handbook. I think it needs to go with every filed campaign report.
Well,
If it's cost, we knew it was going to cost us $50,000 to do something fancy. This is cheap. They may not ever send it in, but
I guess I'm just I'm a little hesitant because that means we don't get this approved for another month. And we've been talking about the campaign fund reports in this form for a while. So I think with the efforts that you're making are well taken, but I'm a little hesitant to not, then that does involve increased instructions, and it holds off the campaign fund report for another month at least.
You could make it a separate checklist that we encourage them to use to help them so that it's not part of this existing form. Oh, Gina?
Okay, so 2 things. If you want to have a checklist and you're posting all this stuff on the website, some people are going to have it and some people are not. And if we're not going to chase them down to make them do it, and the people who look at the reports online are going to call us and ask them, how come some people have this and some people don't?
it would be not a, my idea, it's part of the form. It's not a separate page. When you grab your report, it's part of that form.
Okay, and I have one more question.
Yeah.
This is going to be the first election where you actually, during the election cycle, review all of the campaign fund reports. They come in about 25 to 30 each in each 5 reports. Just wanted to give you that update. So that's going to be a lot in between the other things you're doing. So just want to say who's going to be doing that? Are you guys still going to be doing that?
At this juncture, yes.
Okay.
Regina, if you remember, we came up with a preliminary checklist that I could use to kind of go through and look for these things.
Right.
So I actually have one of those. I haven't shared it but go ahead.
But I'm saying the timing when these reports come in, you're still going to be receiving a lot of stuff to certified candidates. So that's a whole pocket of things.
Mhm.
So I'm just want to make sure everybody is aware that it's a big project.
Right.
With 5 reports.
I would at this point like to review what we have now and
Mhm.
either move forward with it or not. If we want to amend it with an additional piece of paper later, but I really don't want to put this off anymore.
I knew I was going to get yelled at this meeting, and I say that in quotes. But I did not have a chance to really go through all this until too late before this meeting.
We've been reviewing the campaign
Yeah,
fund
so-
report and talking about making changes to it for at least 2 years. So I think that Susan has been able to incorporate a lot of the things that we've talked about in terms of formatting. She has included this campaign fund report amendment description form, which Susan, I'm not quite sure what this is. That's just when it comes in as an amendment.
Yes, that's something the state uses. So if somebody has is filing an amendment, they include this amendment description so that you know what they're amending to a particular report. It's optional. I just drew it, created it. And
is it already included in the instructions and things like that we already have?
No, this is just something
So could we hold off on this and perhaps at least in the beginning use it as an internal checklist?
We could. I have an internal checklist, but
Right.
we could use that.
Again, for the same reason
here's a simple thought, Eileen. That would be very simple if, to know that when it is amended, because Susan added the checkbox on the summary page. It says, this is a final report or not. If that had like a checkbox, check if this is an amended report, as a simple way of bridging that gap, and we'd still have this checklist separate to, verify what was being amended.
I'm not quite sure I follow you.
On the summary of receipts and disbursements, we have a little checkbox that says final report, check if you intend to close the account, and so forth. Do you put right underneath that, check here if this is an amended report? Might be a simple compromise between including the whole checklist as part of the or the whole amendment description form as part of the report.
Just for an idea, because it kind of falls into one of the things I was thinking about. If we look at Schedule 1, Susan has included a checkbox. Check if payer is a PAC. I think we need to include below there, what do we do with that information? Or if a candidate says, well, I don't know. I think the rationale behind it is if it's a PAC, we want them to know that they have to submit a report. Correct? So that needs to be some sort of addition below there explaining what that checkbox is. Now, if we wanted to put a checkbox at the bottom of, say, there, that you ask that the treasurer checks off aggregates have all been included. If you wanted, I'd be more in favor of taking that rather than create a whole new form that we're going to have.
I'm okay with that as well. I was playing with both things for where we see the vast majority of the errors to do that as well.
And then have them sign or initial saying, whatever you want as far as a checkbox saying aggregates have been calculated, or put something out.
Yeah, I was thinking, or I was kind of like making that box bold and I don't know, just to draw their bloody attention to it. That's all.
Bold, saying if aggregates are not calculated, this will not be considered a complete form. Again, I don't want to really keep changing or adding too much.
That seems like that could go under the instructions.
Right. I mean, I think a lot can go underneath the instructions without us necessarily changing the report, but I think to Cliff's point, he wants to have it highlighted a little bit more. I mean, Regina, what are your thoughts?
Well, just to be perfectly honest, they don't read that stuff anyway.
Not in the instructions.
No,
Like they read it on
because
the
they don't read it because they don't complete it,
Mhm.
and they haven't in the past. So I don't know if you want to add it and put it in bold red or bold blue.
Here's a thought. What about if at the, when people's candidacy is determined and they do their treasurer, we send a letter to the treasurer.
With the
saying,
checklist.
You are responsible for the completion of this form, and ask them to return it saying, I understand, and we'll follow it. I mean, at least that way we can get them so that they've at least hopefully taken notice of what needs to be done. I mean,
So we just need a checklist with a signature line for the candidate and the treasurer on the bottom.
I'll work that works. Something that, it's kind of like, we've got the handbook, which is really kind of trying to cover a lot of this stuff, but something that's really targeted to the treasurer, who's the one who's signing these things. And it's like, here are the common things that are wrong in every report.
Okay. How about we look at that, and then that means we could still move forward with the campaign fund report with the form.
Right.
Susan, did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, no, I think that that's probably a good idea. And that way it just doesn't get lost in this, 9-page document.
And then we can explain what the pack is and what we want them to do with that.
Okay.
We can also emphasize the loans that, the other piece of this, I mean, not to get too out of saying, but I mean, Schedule 1 is the contributions and receipts. On loans and transfers, we did come up with the loan consent form, which again is the language that's used by the state. I would like to see something on that page, though, referring them to that.
On which page referring to?
On Schedule 2, loans and transfers.
I thought there was she had a little check mark on that, which said,
I see it.
Yeah.
Loan consent form filed herewith, yes or no.
And it's not always, could be a loan from the candidate, so it wouldn't be applicable.
Right.
So there's that little check box there.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, I had when we get to the loan consent form, I had a question about it, but.
Okay, well, let's talk about it now then, since we're on.
Okay. I was just wondering if it made more sense. I mean, I was reading this and going, the bank line printing rate on a day, the prime rate can be ascertained. I mean, just the prime rate is the prime rate. Frankly, it is the Wall Street Journal prime rate, or as published by the Wall Street Journal on any given day. That's the prime rate. I mean, it's not a biggie. I mean, they're going to get it from wherever they get it, but from if they call their bank, but it's just kind of a technicality as to what we're talking about. And it is the US prime rate, not the Canadian prime rate, which is different. So I didn't know we wanted it's the US, it's not Canadian. Kind of a stupid thing, but
So do you want to add the US to it?
Might just stick US in front of it just because they're different. They're very different rates.
And this form is exactly verbatim from the state's form.
Yeah, well, then I don't like the state form. Sorry.
So, no, I'm just telling you, that's kind of what I was going with. So.
Yep. Yeah, I understand. Yep.
Well, it's the prime lending rate if you want to get really technical.
Yeah. Yep.
So my question to Cliff and Brianna and Regina and even Ashley.
I had a more technical question. Go ahead, Eileen.
I just wanted to know if this concept at least fills what we were thinking of in terms of documentation that's needed.
I like it. I'm thrilled it's put out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you had some other comments on it?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how their statement on if the prime rate is 3 and somebody provides them, I'm going to make you the loan and it's for 1%. And it says, well, the gap, that 2% gap is considered a must be reported as an in-kind contribution on Schedule 5. So they give them $1,000. They give them that $1,000 today at 1%, but it should have been 3%. My question is, what dollar amount is getting reported on Schedule 5? Is it, if their loan is for 2 years, is it the calculated amount of that 1,000 over 2 years at 2%, and that's what they report? Do they have to, or do they report it just every period, the accumulated next 3 months worth of differential on in-kind? And what if they pay it off early? If they report, well, that I gave an in-kind of 100 because that's the difference in the rate. Oh, I paid it off early. The candidate gave them the money back. Do they file the revised Schedule 5 to show, well, it wasn't an in-kind of 100, now it's 50? I'm not sure how that worked.
Well, my question is, do we even need to know this information? I mean,
yeah, well, that gets into, do we want to do what the state is doing and call that differential an in-kind contribution?
I kind of am in favor of taking it out and putting in a line saying conditions or any conditions associated.
Yeah, because I don't know how the state deals with the reporting.
We don't have the ability to be tracking this.
I agree.
I think this is a first step. We're going from nothing, and really what we want to do is, the feedback we've gotten is, okay, you want us to document the loan, but what do you want?
What do you use? Right.
And I'm somewhat in charge. I'm kind of thinking, let's take that out.
It'll be documented. You'll see the rate.
Any conditions associated with this line, please specify, something like that. Does that make sense?
And you'll see the rate, you'll see the charge, because you'll have under what this form is, you'll see interest charge 1, prime rate 3. Oh, that's interesting. But well, now you got a good deal.
May not even be doing that.
Yeah.
We could just take that out. So you're saying take out these little caveats that are listed under 3 and 4.
Right.
And just have a schedule for repayment and interest charged?
Well, I think what we need is the amount of the loan. We need the date of the loan, even though it's on Schedule 2. The date received. I think it's helpful to have the date of the loan.
I get it. We are in an unusual time from an interest rate perspective. If you were at a point in time when rates were 15% and somebody's giving you a loan at 1%, you've gotten a significant in-kind contribution. There's no question. Today, that gap doesn't exist. We worry about it now when a gap may exist in the future. Today the Federal Reserve has kept interest rates near zero, which is, I think, a dastardly thing to do, but that's where we are.
I'm in favor, just like I said, taking out interest charge, taking out the prime rate of the day, and maybe putting in any conditions, any other conditions associated. And then if they have interest or they have other things, they can put it there.
Well, I don't think it's a problem to show the rate. It's just
it's a rate. I mean, let's be honest. The ones that we're looking at in terms of loans are usually family members, and the chances
typically
they're not dealing with.
Just have them attach the paperwork for it.
Well, they haven't
like a bank statement or what have you.
I just want, we've gone again from doing nothing. I just want them to document when the loan was given
and from whom it is,
what the other person, and then know that they got to pay it off. They're keeping it over from year to year even, and it needs to stop with the election things. So, if they charge interest, that's useful for us, but we're not going to be doing anything with it, really. If I'm off base, tell me, but I'm kind of like, we've got enough.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, again, if we were in the 1980s style inflationary period with rates, you'd have a risk of somebody getting a deal. We don't have that risk right now, and I don't think we need to worry about that.
Yeah, let's just start with this and just see if we can even get them to return it. All right, anything else on that page?
But thanks for that. See, I think it's a great idea. That'll help with that.
So do you want to know the date of the loan, the amount of the loan, and the schedule for repayment? And those are the only things you really care about.
If people feel the need to find out more information like interest and all that, we could put in any other conditions, any conditions associated with this line. Please specify if you think that would provide the information we think we need.
I don't even know if we, like you said, what are we going to do with it? If you're not going to do anything with it, then
Right.
Yep.
it'll make it more complicated than it already is.
And my other thought was on this form is, and
Well, can we
I don't know if we've had any questions about this or not, but
Well, can we answer that question first before moving on? Are we going to keep in any conditions or not put it in?
well, certainly the amount of loan, schedule repayment, I think we keep, and then any other conditions.
And then keep any other conditions?
Yeah.
Brianna, your thoughts?
That's fine by me.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
moving on to the next point.
No, just a question. I don't know if it matters in this form or not, but if folks know, and we have it certainly within the handbook, that, oh, by the way, if you're not the candidate or spouse, this counts as part of your, $1,000 or $2,500, election cycle contribution, as far as whoever is providing this. So that was my only other thought on this
But
form. I don't know if we need it or not.
Yeah, but it's a loan, not a contribution.
But
Yeah.
loans do count towards do they not?
I don't-
Towards your
For driving it?
regulatory limit?
I don't believe if they're repaid, but Regina?
I don't know. I had a different question.
All right, well, we can, I mean, Susan, if you can check
Yeah,
it.
double
My
check
thought
that.
is it's not a contribution, it's a loan. So,
So my
It says
question,
4.4405 says, aggregate amount of all outstanding loans to the campaign, the candidate, no, I'm sorry, the aggregate amount of all outstanding loans to the candidate shall not exceed 1,000 a cycle for.
Alderman, and 2,500 for
Right.
mayor.
Right, so must have the candidate's witness. So maybe that,
I think it's outstanding loans. If they then become contributions would certainly. count.
no, but the limit of 1,000, yeah, I was reading that as the person who's giving it was limited, but you can't receive more than 1,000. So whoever gives it to you, that would not count towards there. Okay,
Okay. All
thank
right.
you.
Regina, what's your question?
So since you're on this topic, if you can only give $1,000 to an alderman in a term, right?
Correct. Mhm.
So what about the reports that we currently have? Do we have a listing somewhere of people who already donated? So we can know if they met their limit of $1,000 or $2,500 for the mayor?
Well, that should be
Going
in the
forward?
aggregate on the campaign report.
No. I'm talking about if they can only do it in one election cycle.
Well,
That's
that should
from
be
the day-
aggregate.
That's from the day after the general
Right,
until the
Mhm.
day after
Yep.
the general.
right.
So if somebody gave contributions before tomorrow
Mhm.
of $1,000, they would no longer be eligible to, if they gave it, like, for instance, to Alderman Finlayson, they would no longer be eligible to do it again. But we just get the reports and we look at what's in it to make sure it balances. So how do we know if they already gave the
Well,
maximum amount that they could?
They're required to report the aggregates. So if that person gave 1,000 and you report 1,000, then that person cannot give, another dime during the cycle to that particular candidate. If they
But
gave
how
500,
do you know?
well,
We follow that. We've done that.
yeah,
Okay, I'm just asking because I was thinking, is there a report somewhere as of the last campaign fund report with like names to show
all that's, yeah.
going forward if they gave any money?
Right. And it may be that we just have to do a spot audit on
Yes,
some of
Somebody-
these
Yep.
reports. I mean, fortunately, it hasn't been an issue. I think the last election, actually, a candidate realized the error and had it
right.
corrected.
And came
even
back
before
right
they-
away. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
I think
I'm not
that's
trying to create any issues. I was just asking questions. I'm just asking.
all right. So Susan, I had a question.
Mhm.
On the heading, it says loan consent. Okay, never mind. I just answered my own question. All
Okay.
right, so that's Schedule 2 and the loan consent form. Let's look at Schedule 3 for disbursements. Looks like you included the electronic transfer. I assume that's the EFT?
Yep. And then there's a place to put a description for other.
Mhm.
And I also kind of made this, I can't remember what the old form looked like, but I kind of condensed some things down so that loan, because it had loan payments, it like had 2 columns for loan payments, and then 2 columns for transfers. And it just didn't make sense the way the old form was. So you're listing the payee and address.
Mhm.
Unless it's a transfer, then you're going to have the name of where it's coming from and the
Mhm.
amount in column 6. So I think there was originally a name column next to loan payments, but that you're covering that with the payee name under column 2. So
Right, okay.
Right.
So looking at this, it makes me realize, going back to the loan consent form, do we want to ask them what form they're paying this loan in? Is it cash or an electronic transfer or a check? Is it something we need to know?
well,
We ask it elsewhere for our other payments.
For the disbursements.
we're asking it for, yeah, I think we are asking.
So can we add that to the form then?
Well, you
Add
just
to the
did,
form, or you could add it to the schedule.
well, it's already there. You've got the payment method in column 3.
So the payment method, column 3 is an independent column.
Yeah,
And
column
then-
3 can apply to column 4 or column 5.
I'm looking at the loan and transfer form.
Oh. Loan
And
and
I'm saying,
transfer.
we have the payment method on Schedule 1, and we have a payment schedule on Schedule 3, but we don't have it for Schedule 2 or on our new loan consent form.
Oh, you mean as far as when it's coming, as far as how it's coming in?
How it's coming, is it cash, check, or electronic transfer?
Do we care?
Well, if we had to follow the money, it might help.
Okay. It has not been there in the past.
Right, I'm just asking for consistency's sake.
Yeah, I can certainly add it in. And we're talking about adding that to Schedule 2.
It could be there, it could be on the loan consent form.
Yeah, how
Oh. Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm fine with just putting it on the loan consent form, but it seems to me that, an area that there could be less discretion is with loans. And so I'm kind of, if you could just put it on there.
Okay.
We're not asking for copies of the check or copies of that. We're just,
Right. Okay.
and then that's also putting it on, the candidate is signing off on that.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
All right. All right, sorry to keep going back and forth. Okay, anything else on Schedule 3?
I don't think anything else changed.
Okay. Now, usually on Schedule 3, don't we usually have the codes on that schedule?
they've never been on the I don't think they've been on the schedule.
Can't remember. You're right.
It's not a
Throw
bad
the-
idea to put them in a small box if we could, but
On the loans?
the disbursements, we have like 8 different disbursement
Yeah.
reasons.
Oh, there's a place there for code.
No, but
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
In like 6-point font in a box in the upper right corner, stick the disbursement codes, but it's not mandatory.
They can look it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to be handing in 10 pages and it's taking up space when it could have been 8. So,
That's why I was thinking 6-point font. It'd be tiny.
all right. So Schedule 4 is the outstanding obligations. That can change.
Nope.
5. Any changes on in-kind contributions? I mean, the information on all of this is found elsewhere. So,
yeah.
okay.
Can I under Schedule 2, is it beneficial to add one word, new? I don't know, it's not a big deal. Under loans and transfers, I think it's kind of clear it's intended for new ones. You don't use this form for existing loans that gets put on another page.
It's
But-
all in there in the
Yeah.
instructions.
So, yeah,
Tell them what they should be doing.
yeah. Wish I'd thrown away.
All
Yep. All right.
So in summary, we'll look at, I think we've caught up. Nothing changing on the summary of receipts and disbursements, correct?
Oh, there is one thing that did change, I changed, and that was where I put in up at the top where the bank information is.
Mhm.
On file.
I put on file with elections office.
Sweet. Thank you. Yes.
That's good.
Yep.
Candidates will appreciate that.
Yep.
And then
That's the
I've
biggest, best change of the whole thing. Yep.
I've got like part of the processing of new candidacy that we get that information from them, and then it just goes filed with their
Yep.
certificate of candidacy in their folder.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, and then on Schedule 1, you've added the electronic transfer, but no other, and you've added check if payer is a PAC. I'm not sure what we wanted. To be honest, I'm not sure we need to put it there. That makes them, for every contribution, have to check that off. I'm wondering if instead of a check for each contribution, just a note at the bottom saying if a contribution is from a PAC, see city code or refer them to what they need to do with that. Does that make sense? I mean, otherwise, if they have 50, they sell tickets and they got 50
Right.
people, they're going to have to do 50 checks and some of our candidates never even get contributions from a PAC.
Right.
Right.
So if rather than that, if we can put something at the bottom saying, please note, if a contribution is from a political action committee, whatever form it is, give them this form needs to be completed and just send them to that. Does that make sense?
What form is that? Oh, they need, the PAC needs
The
to.
PAC needs to file, yeah. So if a contribution is from a political action committee, please note they are required to submit X, Y, and Z. So at least the candidate is notified that that's a discussion we've had before, is whose responsibility is it? And it's really, I think, the PAC's responsibility.
Well, Eileen, here's a thought. If that comes out of that space on this report, do you put in that open space, if we did this, used it for, mandatory arrow aggregate, it would open up room to do something of that sort.
You could do that. How about just highlighting aggregate?
Yep.
We'll try that.
Anything.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do, Susan.
Okay.
Can we just put it in all caps?
Sure.
Yep.
Because
That's more effective.
It'll fit. Yep.
Yeah, we'll just put it in caps because we're not allowed to use color for a
Yeah.
lot of things, and
Right.
people won't print it. It won't be in color.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds
Okay.
good. All right. Then Schedule 2 is loans and transfers.
Yep.
That's had the consent form filed. That's been added. That's great. We have the loan consent form. We have disbursements. It's had the EFT added to it and the other description. We have Schedule 4 that looks to be pretty much the same. Same with Schedule 5. And then we also have this amendment description form.
Which we said, I got the impression we weren't really going to use this unless we used it internally somehow.
I think it could be used. This falls a lot on you, Cliff. When we do these, I think doing a checklist and of just telling them this is where the error is, summary sheet, the errors on Schedule 1, Schedule 2.
That could be useful for that purpose.
I think.
Yeah, it could be something that we
I like
scan
that.
and send to them via email. Like when you send the email, it's like, hey, here are errors, we have them. Please see attachment. That way there's no confusion.
Let's think about doing that, because then what we could do it as an internal form. We could send it to them, and then when they send it back, have them sign this and send it back with their report.
Because sometimes when you look at these forms online, you're trying to follow which one is this amending, and it sometimes gets confusing.
Well, let's see if we can't look at it from a dual standpoint. It's something we send out to them to help highlight where the issue is. And then when it's done, we could put in a column saying completed, that they initial, and then they send back with it. Does that make sense? All right. So are we good to go on having this count as a final, or do you want Susan to send out the final and then we'll all say yay or nay?
Count as the final.
I'm okay with the changes that we've talked about
Yeah.
that we made.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm good with them too.
Are you good with that, Regina?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, done. I have a feeling that the campaign fund report is just always a work in progress.
Yep. Yep.
But I think we've made some really good changes, so. Okay, so
Right.
we've done the campaign fund report, the loan consent, the amendment, and now we're up to the campaign handbook or the candidate handbook,
Yeah, the beast.
the beast. Well, Susan's done a great job. She and I have gone over it a couple of times, and I know she's gone over it with Regina. It never hurts to get more feedback.
Page 1.
Okay.
Are you talking about the
In the
cover
handbook.
page?
You wanna-
Page 1 in the handbook, not the cover page.
Okay.
Okay.
The very
Yep.
just a small point, but where in the middle of the page where we say the board holds regular meetings on the third Thursday of the month and on primary and general election days, that sentence ends with at 7 p.m. So it's like the primary and general is also at 7
Oh,
p.m.
You're right.
So I think
yeah.
it needs to be of the month at 7 p.m. and on primary and general election days.
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we also meet when we do the canvas, but I guess that's not
True
really
enough.
meeting
Yeah.
with Canvas. Okay. All right. Good point.
Yeah, and that's actually, you're convening as a board of canvassers then.
True,
not
it's
as
actually-
those.
Right. Okay. Do you want to, we can go through each page. I'm
But
looking,
you know, a lot of the information in the candidate packet is also in the calendar
Yeah.
And in the code.
and in the code. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of duplication of things.
right.
And we want people to look at the calendar also.
Okay. One quick kind of digressing a little bit. You might have seen that Ashley had responded to a question I had about a disclaimer.
Mhm.
I had looked at some other places they had put in a disclaimer. So my question would be, if
Oh, I
we
saw
want
that. Yeah.
to put it in the introduction, or do we just want to put it somewhere on the front page where we have the other information about COVID on the cover page?
Yeah,
Where did I-
yeah,
where
maybe
did I
on
see
the
that this time?
outside of the candidate.
Yeah,
Information.
like in like the front, like in the slip part of a binder. Is that what we're talking about? Something like that.
Just even put it on the front page of the candidate.
Yeah, I think since it's gonna. I mean, we're gonna print this, right?
Well, it can also be online too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can put
Thinking
it
about
online.
putting it on this page
Yeah, on the first page, absolutely.
and then just put a disclaimer there.
And
Yeah.
What page was that? I have my laptop.
On the front, on the
The
very,
very first cover
Okay,
page.
Yes, that makes great sense to me.
And that's easy.
Yeah.
Okay. And
In looking at, what page is this? 3 for definitions.
Mhm.
I'll say just for like legibility, the putting the terms in like bold.
Oh, each term. Yeah. So you know
Yeah,
you're moving term to term.
Yeah, the ones in quotes like
Yeah.
in bold.
Okay,
That makes sense.
okay.
Yeah. I noticed some of these were bolded. Kind of you go straight to those. Yeah.
Mhm.
okay.
That would be page 3, page 4.
All right, page 4. And some of them are on page 5.
Yep. Very top.
Okay, anything on page 5?
Not by me.
Okay, page 6.
Just a thought on page 6 at points B and C. I mean, they're actually 2 deadlines, particularly for the aldermen, alderwomen. There are 2 deadlines. You know, one is 1 year in terms of, being registered voter in the city, and 6 months as regards in the ward. So at the end of that section C, we have this deadline is Monday, May 3rd, 2021, which is really referring to the second deadline, not the first deadline. So I didn't know if it made sense to the ward residency deadline is Monday, May 3rd, 2021. The city residency deadline is November whatever of 2020.
I'm sorry, what page?
Whatever, 2020. This is the very top of page 6.
Mhm.
Before, right above certificate of candidacy
Yeah.
and financial
Yeah.
disclosure.
I was just kind of observing there are actually 2 deadlines being referred to, and the one that we've got
Right.
referenced, which I think is great, is the ward residency deadline that we're talking about, as opposed to the city overall city residency.
Right.
So you just want to have that inserted?
So just make it clear, that it's kind of anybody reading this a couple times realize what it is, but just make it clear what that's pointing towards. And we don't show a deadline on the mayor. Mayor
Right.
has a single deadline, which is 2 years. So just for consistency,
As I said, that breakdown information is in the calendar. It says in the calendar,
Yep.
1 year prior to blank, you need to be a registered
Right,
voter
right.
in the ward for alderman, and then 6
Yep.
months, it shows the
Yep.
date in the, it's a lot of duplication with this manual.
Right.
Are we gonna, one thought would be, were we gonna put like a copy of the appendix? Yeah, so the calendar is in here.
Yes.
So maybe the reference is see the calendar for the deadline dates.
It's the same amount of space,
Yeah.
just give them the date.
Yeah.
I agree it's repetitious, but I think experience has shown us
Yeah.
you can tell them, people, myself included, need to be told more than once. So,
Yeah.
so it would be easy just to add that other date in there
Mhm.
on page 6.
Yep. Okay.
Page 7. Anything there?
Not by me.
Mm-mm.
Okay, page 8.
Nope.
Page 9.
Nope.
And page 10.
Nope.
11.
Nope.
Let's see. And there is that's on I have an old copy. Page 12.
I just had a comment. Do we have the under 4.44040 surplus funds,
Mhm.
and making a comment that, this differs from the State Board of Elections campaign finance laws. Do we need to have that reference there, or is that just going to beg, what's different?
Well, I suggested putting
Yeah.
that because we had a candidate last time that went by the state.
And
So,
which is not the same as what ours
right.
is.
And this
Okay,
is
that's
supposed to be
why it's there.
providing them with
Okay.
with information that's going to help them.
That-
So,
Reminds me of the why it's there. Okay.
okay. 13.
I was trying to find where I saw something in some of the other material that when I first read this, I thought, wait a minute, is that the same I read elsewhere? So what I'm talking about is at the end of the first section, 4.44055, and then the third paragraph, outstanding loans not forgiven shall be reported to the board as campaign contributions within 6 months of the last election cycle. And I thought I saw something, and I couldn't find it, that said that loans need to be paid off by the end of the next cycle. And either I misread something from elsewhere, or I just can't find where I saw that, but it seemed to conflict in a way with this, because if I did read that loans don't need to be paid off until the end of the next cycle, but then this says, well, you know what? You didn't get paid off and it's not forgiven, and then it's a contribution. I don't know. It may not be a conflict, but I just was trying to think through that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find where I thought I'd read that.
Susan, could you double check that
I
That
will. Yeah.
section? Because
Mhm.
you've taken most of this straight from code.
Yeah.
Right. but maybe there's something, yes, I'd be happy to check into that.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that
Nope.
page? Page 14,
Nope.
15,
Mm-mm.
16.
16. Just a thought. The campaign reporting periods are always a little bit, beguiling to the folks filing their reports. And I thought, would it potentially be any clearer for items 1 through 7 to start each one with campaign ending date 8/15/2021, or campaign ending date 9/12, whatever the dates are. So it's kind of 2 statements: ending through date here, due date X. So ending date is 8/15 or whatever it is. In this case,
Are you
ending
reading the
date
reporting period dates?
and then due date.
Are you referring to the reporting periods that are listed there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there are 2 timelines that are really involved all the time. It's what day is it through, and then when is it due? And so this is saying no later than here, but then you got to read script to see what is my time frame. Oh, it's here at 8/15, or it's till here for this period. So would it make it clearer to be this report is through this date and due on that date, through this date, due on that date.
I guess
Whether
I'm
that,
in favor of it's due. I mean, to me, the emphasis is we want it on, I don't know. We could.
Are you
look
saying
at
like
it that
swap
way.
the information in the semicolons, like for period, 8/16/2021 to
it's just
9/12, it's due no later
just a
than
thought, or again, maybe keep it there that this is when it's due, but the next period section is just like make it through 8/15. I don't know. It just we see this frequently on the reports, and
Right.
what are the from and to dates, and what's the last day of this
Well,
cycle?
Yeah,
That's all.
the
Just
thing that goes with that paragraph is the report shall be filed as follows. I'm kind of in favor of putting the due date there to remind them of that, because otherwise then we'll end up with, I don't know. I don't feel that strongly. Regina, do you have a preference?
Well, listen, when we have a due date, some people turn them in early.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Before the through date,
because
right?
the due date is through the Sunday prior to the date that it's due.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so sometimes they turn it in on Friday because they're not going to do any more contributions prior to the Sunday end of the term date.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We could put the date in. The date is actually due in the office by 4:30 on blank date, because that's what time it's due in the office, by 4:30. So, we could put the 4:30 date, which is the report's due on a Sunday, and at Sunday, closes out on Sunday. It is due on the following Tuesday, Monday, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to
lot
be
of
the person,
information,
tell me
Right.
what the deadline
But-
is, and then I'll figure out what goes in the deadline.
But it's also in the calendar.
I understand that. Well, you want to have Susan put it in 2 different ways, and we'll look at it and decide which one we like better?
I'm not gonna stress on this one.
Let me just ask a question. So is your goal for the candidate information packet to have everything in it that's already in the calendar? Or do you want people to read the calendar also? Because I thought the idea for the candidate packet was the weird questions that we got from the last election. Like for electioneering, can a candidate be within the 100 feet perimeter after they voted? And the answer is no.
Well, it could be different ways. I think the train's pulled out that this is kind of the way we've gone with it.
Okay.
So
it was just a question, because
Right.
it seems like we're doing a lot of duplication of things when we want them to read both.
right.
They got to look at the calendar.
I understand, but I thought that what we were talking about was giving them as much information in plain language and then asking them to please review it, sign off on it, and then they have it on a kind of a quick review. I agree, it's a lot of information, probably more than what we set out. But, you know, we could do it frequently. I mean, under challenge, I mean, we've hit some of it in terms of the challengers and watchers, and, you know, we're going to get questions. So I think we work on what we got here now instead of trying to think of the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I had envisioned they're also including like a common question thing, but I don't really know what the questions y'all got regularly. Or like what if there's a compilation of them anywhere. But I mean, given the apparently repeated mishaps of even incumbents, clearly there's some things that need to be laid out, just extra addition to the calendar.
Like, there's an issue, and I'm not sure if it's in the candidate packet or in the calendar. When candidates lose the primary, can it be a writing candidate?
It's in there.
It's in the candidate packet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think Susan actually clarified it with you.
Yeah.
I think she did, but we've been looking at so much stuff, I don't remember. I have to be honest, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was in here defining what your timeline was if you
and it's even bolded saying if you also, there's the other one in there, if you withdraw your candidacy, your ballot, your name's still going to be on the ballot.
Now I remember that one.
All right, well, it's in there.
If you missed the deadline, your name is still going to be on the ballot. Absolutely.
Right. So what's your other question that you're asking?
I don't remember.
Okay, I mean, we put in signs because one of the questions was, one of the complaints we got last time was the signs were too big.
Yep, and we have some, like under electioneering, there's some question and answer in that section.
And and well, one of the things that I really like in the candidate information packet was the fact that by the authority of could be the candidate, it could be the treasurer or the campaign manager. Remember that code section?
Right.
It usually says by the authority of the treasurer. I didn't realize that it could be also by the candidate or the campaign manager. Right. It just had to have an authority line.
Right. So, I mean, I think this is expanded to be a little bit more than initially, but I think it's good because, again, we're hoping that we know that most candidates are not going to read code, and code is difficult to read. And I think Susan's done a good job of kind of taking code and clarifying it in some. And I think, again, our issue was we want to make sure that they, or at least ask them to please sign off that they've read this and they've shared it with other information. And hopefully they'll use this more. But yes, the election, you know, the election calendar needs to be looked at. The election calendar is a group of dates. It doesn't explain what goes along with it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, all right, where are we on page 17?
Yep.
Anything there?
Nope.
Okay. And these can also be updated. We can always amend this and update things.
Right.
Page 18.
Is this where I admit I didn't read beyond page 19?
I don't know.
If you got that far, that's pretty good.
The rest of it's perfect.
Okay. 20, 21. And, you know, underneath the mail-in.
General election really in October?
I'm sorry?
Is what?
Is our general election really in October?
No, where do you see that?
Where do you see that?
That's the
page 19.
That's the public. Page
Copies
19.
of registration list.
Oh, okay.
Deadlines for
Sorry,
the,
missed that. It's like, wait.
Yeah.
And again, you know, we don't do the voter registration. We send them to the county. This kind of just gives basic information. The idea being that we want candidates to know the basics too, so that if they have constituents ask them, they can answer it as opposed to saying, call Regina, call Susan. Okay, 20, 21, 22, 23. Just as a note, Susan did include on some of these pages, if you have any questions or comments, use the hotline number. Don't call City Hall, don't call other places, don't call the police.
You can almost put that as a footer.
Right, on every page.
It's on every page.
So going back to what you were asking, Regina, on page 24, it gets into the electioneering. You know, what is electioneering? What is allowed? you know, who can do it, you know, exit polling, that kind of thing is all in there.
Oh, that's good. Because we don't want to have another situation like we did last time where you had to actually go out and referee.
Right.
Hey, do we want the, you know, we're talking about the, you know, challengers and watchers form.
Mhm.
You know, we have a variety of appendices here. Do we want that to be one of the items in the appendix?
I think the link is provided.
It does
Yeah,
have, if you're looking at it in that way, yeah.
I didn't really want to include the forms in the
You didn't?
appendix because, and I can't remember if you got one that shows that or if I took that out because.
Yeah,
when
I
the
got one
forms
that
change, you gotta
shows.
change everything.
Yeah, we're just going to do links.
Oh, okay. So like the 2021 municipal, so every place it shows up, it's a link to the form.
Yes, it's a link to the online form.
Got it. So under the appendix, so are you still going to list them, but it's a hyperlink to the form? It's actually not the form itself then? Or are you getting rid of the appendix?
Well, no, I'm going to keep the appendix because the ward maps are going in there
Right.
and the election calendar is going
Right.
in there. And
So then under appendix, is it a link to the challengers and watchers?
actually, it says for the most up-to-date forms, please visit the City of Annapolis Elections Information website, and it takes you to the webpage, to the elections webpage, where
Yeah.
you can get those forms.
But I mean, since we have the other ones here as well, but
I mean, I can
Yeah.
list each one and
I
make
don't think
that
there's any
available.
other, I don't think there's any other form.
I don't think we want to put the forms in, but you could put the
Sure.
link in.
Right, right.
Yes, yes,
Just add links on the appendix.
yes.
Okay. I think you can add the link to the word map too. I mean, the only thing I think really in the appendix that you really need is the election calendar.
As a live appendix as opposed to a link.
I would
I guess
put
so, because they're going to have a paper copy of this that they're signing off to.
Well, that's a separate piece. I think, you know,
Yeah,
if they have, I mean, if
true.
it'll show up on here, the link will just show up as the address. So they can use that. I think the only thing paper-wise to add to this would be the election calendar, because I would like to think some people may just pull that off and pop it up
Right.
somewhere. But I think you can do links for the ward maps and also links for the information on the voting turnout.
Okay.
And then the only other link, if you want to add it, is for the Anne Arundel County State Board. You know, that's where the voter registration information is.
Yeah.
Mhm. And Eileen, pursuant to our conversation about adding a FAQ, how do I apply to register to vote? That's now on the webpage.
Okay, great. Yeah, I had asked Susan, I had been on the webpage for something else, and under the we don't have how do I register. So that's great that you added that. You can find it if you go to city elections, but I could imagine people new to the city would be.
Where do I go? Yeah.
Okay. So then the piece that goes along with the handbook is this acknowledgement of the receipt.
Right.
So
Mhm.
Susan, can you go over how you see this working?
Well, I would see that as something that would be sort of my responsibility to make sure I get within so many days after they've submitted, either we've approved their I guess well, I guess I'm kind of having a hard time here thinking about when would we give this handbook to them or make it available? It's going to be on the website, so actually people can see it at any time.
Mhm.
But we also, when would be, I guess, once we approve the certificate of candidacy, or I shouldn't say we, you, then that would put a time limit for them to get that form back to us. The acknowledgement form. Trying to remember what I wrote down here.
Correct.
It says within 10 days, and I feel like if we've certified their candidacy, and I mean, we send an email anyway that says, hey, you know, congrats, your candidacy is
Yeah, I see
certified.
too.
You can be like, also, and just say, also, here is the candidate handbook, you know, responding this to incumbents and new candidates, please note to return the acknowledgement receipt. Like,
Hey,
they can sign it and scan it and send it back too.
Right.
I was thinking that we not give it to them until they give us everything that we need. There's an online form that they need to provide to us that states their name, their address, what is their mailing address for the campaign, the treasurer, everybody's contact information. Once their website page is up to date and Susan verifies that we don't need anything else for them, then we'll send them that in an email. Because then we'll have everything we need from them. We don't need to contact them anymore. And that'll be the final steps.
Right. But we'd like to ask them to return that receipt within 10 days.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but yeah, because we actually just got the mayor's page put up finally when Tuesday, Susan?
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around Tuesday. Have you guys looked at the website?
It looks great.
I have a question on this page though. So we've got candidate signature, treasurer signature, campaign, and then committee chair. And it says, please submit this fully executed acknowledgement within 10 days of certification of candidacy. So I'm a candidate. So the committee chair,
Oh,
does
yeah.
that fit with that statement?
right. No, it really doesn't, does it?
I think we just need the candidate and the treasurer. No?
You could need, maybe a campaign manager.
I say, I feel
But
like
I
if
think just the
they've
two of
got a
them.
campaign manager, I would also have the campaign manager sign it.
Yeah. But the committee chair, yeah, you're right.
But I was thinking that committee chair, I mean, I think, do we want the AADC and the ARCC to give this receipt as well?
Let me just say
They're not candidates.
for clarification purposes, we asked that they submit the information for everybody that they listed on their certificate of candidacy. If they have a treasurer and a campaign manager or a treasurer and a chairman, that's what we asked for.
Right, and that makes sense. It's just a committee chair, which you wouldn't have a committee chair, right? If you as a candidate.
We do have a chairman on the certificate of candidacy. It's a chairman or a manager, campaign manager.
Well, campaign manager, and that's here. So you got candidate, treasurer, campaign manager.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the committee chair, which is that really more that's for committees, not necessarily candidate committees. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the certificate of candidacy, it's whatever they completed. Like I think I recall that Gavin has a campaign chairman.
Yep.
And he called because he said he may have a campaign manager.
Right.
So he may have both.
But that's still, so yeah, there could be that there's a campaign manager and a campaign chairman, but there's not a committee. I guess I'm hitting on the word committee.
Well, I don't want to make this so difficult that then we're chasing signatures. I mean, to me, this was to give it to the candidate. And in the intro, we say, we ask you review the information thoroughly and share it with your campaign treasurer, campaign manager, and others associated with your campaign. To me, the responsible person here is the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're saying you need to share this. I don't think, I don't want to get into the position where we're chasing down signatures. To me, I think we just need the candidate. I could see adding the treasurer, but to me, this is the candidate. They're the ones responsible. They need to get that information out to their people.
I agree. I'm just saying on the certificate of candidacy, it has those names. So
right, but it's the candidate handbook. It's not the campaign handbook. It's the candidate handbook.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I agree.
So, and I mean, if people want, we can add other things, but then we're putting ourselves into having Susan chase people, and I don't think that's necessary.
Right.
Thoughts, feedback?
Yeah. My only counter would be keep the treasurer and get rid of campaign and committee chair. Just because so much of that's in here really gets into the issues surrounding what the treasurer needs to do. But I could go with just keeping candidate as well. That was a non-answer.
I feel like if it should be consistent with the other forms. So if we've got like campaign manager and treasurer signing stuff on other forms, then keep it in line. But I mean, I'm not married to it. I just don't trust only the candidate having to sign as being fine.
If you're afraid that they'll sign off on it, but they haven't really shared or nobody else has seen it.
Like there needs to be someone secondary, the campaign manager or the treasurer, whoever else, is essentially ends up being a surrogate for them in whatever capacity as far as campaign stuff goes, or a contact person for campaign stuff.
All right, so if we go with, say, the candidate and the treasurer, I mean, if we're going with all of them, we need to put that somewhere. So then it's not, dear candidate, it's dear candidate and treasurer. When we're looking at the introduction, where we're giving them the information on how we want them to follow up with it.
Campaign team, whatever, campaign officers, whatever.
I think we're making it more complicated. How about we just keep it with the candidate and the treasurer?
That's fine.
I mean, again, it's, to me, the responsibility of the candidate to be aware of this and share it, I feel like then we're putting ourselves in the position of policing it.
Yep. But I think it's like Brianna's point. It's good to have two people signing it.
I just want the ability. I don't necessarily want to police them, but I want them to know that there is the ability to police them or hold them accountable for not doing what they said they were.
So Susan, can we then change the introduction to some degree and say something like, we ask you to review the information, or we can make it just dear candidate / treasurer. And we'll say we're asking them both to review it, submit the acknowledgement form, and then also to share it with campaign managers and others associated with the campaign. Does that make sense?
Sounds good
Talking
to me.
about putting that in the introductory paragraph
Yep, on page 1.
Yeah.
on page one.
Page 1.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we'll just add, just kind of clarify, just add a little information. And then we can also make note of this acknowledgement form.
Okay.
And so what we may end up getting is probably going to be getting for each campaign 2 pieces of paper. So.
Yeah, they may not sign them and join on the same sheet. Yeah.
So that's fine. Okay. Anything else?
Huge thanks to all the effort on the forms, on the campaign book. It's awesome.
Well, it's a joint effort.
Yeah.
We're all doing it.
Terrific.
Well, Susan's been busy, and so we've reviewed that, and I know she got some information from Brianna and looking at the state, and we also looked at a couple of other sites.
No, I guess not fully related to this. I am also tracking some of there's a couple of bills at the state level that relate to local and municipality stuff. So I'm tracking those with the other stuff I'm tracking for the county, but
Oh, great.
just so y'all know that they're out there.
Okay. Do you think they're going to be trying to introduce rank file voting again?
I didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's going to be introduced, it hasn't been pre-filed
Okay.
or hasn't been dropped yet, but I haven't seen it yet. I went through the whole elections category to see if anything.
That's really helpful. All right, we'll put that on the agenda. That's a good point, maybe for the agenda for you to update us on that. Okay, anything else to add? We've had a productive meeting. We're wrapping up a lot of things we've had in the works for a while.
I don't know, Eileen, since you took over, we don't end at 8 anymore.
Sue me. So, anything else? Regina, are you still with us? I don't know, maybe she's not.
There she is.
Yep.
There she is. Anything that you'd like for us to, we're good?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
All right. Well, if I can have a call for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All right. All in favor?